Hello friends, welcome back in the channel of Clinical Care Insight. We have started a series of lecture on sensory system, okay? And already we covered about the basic introductory part of sensory system, okay? Then we talked about the receptors, the types of receptors. Then we started discussing the sensations, okay? We discussed about the sensation and we covered the two systems. The first one is called the ear, okay? Then we studied about the, we can say, the skin, okay? And now today we will start about the discussing the organ of olfaction, the organ of olfaction, okay? Write down. Today our topic of discussion is the sensation of smell, okay? The sensation of smell. Now, so our lecture outline, let me introduce with you our lecture outline. See, first we will deal with the introduction, then we will go and describe about the olfactory receptors, okay? Then this organ called vomeronasal organ, it's very interesting, okay? It's very interesting. And then olfactory pathways, okay? Then olfactory transduction, and how the main higher center, that's our olfactory cortex, okay, they work and their abnormalities, okay? And we will discuss about the olfaction abnormalities, okay? Understood? I hope you all are fine, well, good, okay? So the sensation of a smell is also called as olfaction. It's also called as olfaction, okay? Now, the olfaction system, or we can say the sensation of this smell, it is a very primitive type of sensation. It's a primitive type. It's a primitive type of sensation. It is present, started, if we talk about the evolutionary relationships, okay, it is present in monkeys, okay, and other lower organisms, and it is also well developed in us. It is also well developed in the us. Now, the olfaction, generally it is carried out, it is done by our nose, okay? We know that we have nose, how many? Yeah, we have the one nose. So let me draw one diagram quickly. See, and this is your suppose this is your nose, and you know your nose have two nostrils, okay? And internal this nasal cavity, they are divided into the two types. The first type, okay, and we have the another part. These two parts, they are separated by this septum, and this is called the nasal septum. This is called the nasal septum. And if you remembered, then there is a presence of here the ethmoid bone. There is a one ethmoid bone. Here the ethmoid bone is present, okay? Now, these nasal mucosa, nasal cavity is lined by the nasal epithelium, that's their nasal mucosa, and the nose have the nostrils, or we can say the nasal cavity. Okay, this nasal cavity is divided by a septum. Okay, it is divided by a septum. And now this nasal cavity, it is lined by the nasal mucosa. Understanding? It is lined by the nasal mucosa. Till here any doubt? No? Understanding? Okay. Now it's a nasal mucosa. Okay. These nasal mucosa, they carries the receptors. They carry the receptor. The nasal mucosa have receptors. Okay, they have the receptors, and these receptors, they are involved in the taking the signals. Okay, they are basically taking the chemical stimulus and changing into the action potential. This phenomenon is basically called as olfactory transduction. Okay, you know that how you feel the smell, how you smell. First, the air comes in this way. Okay, the air, okay, this air coming to your nostril, and this nasal mucosa, they have the receptors. Okay, and this receptor is present on the receptor cells. This receptor is present basically on the nasal receptors cell. Understood? Now these cells pick up the chemical stimulus, those component of the air who are capable to dissolve in the mucous membrane. Okay, those particles of the air which are able to dissolve in the mucous membrane, they are taken by these receptor cells, and there is a formation of, we can say, the substrate receptor complex. Okay, substrate receptor complex, and there is the pathway. Okay, we are calling it a olfactory pathway, via which they goes to the higher system. Okay, and then the smell, the olfaction is analyzed, processed, and appropriate responding will be generated. Understood? Have any problem? No? Now, how many do you know that the receptors nuclei or cell which is present in the human, it is, can you estimate anyone? How much nasal receptors, or we can say the olfactory receptors, do you have? Yeah? Don't know? Okay, no problem. The receptor, or we can say the olfactory receptor which is present in the human, they are estimated as 10 to 20 millions. 10 to 20 millions. You have the olfactory receptors. You have the olfactory receptor. Write down. Understood? Once you understood the basic idea, the introductory part of the sensation of smell, or also called as olfaction, let me summarize it once again. The olfaction term is used for the sensation of smell. Clear? Now, this is a very primitive type. It is a primitive type of, we can say, the sensation. It's a primitive type of sensory sensation. Understood? Now, this is mediated, done by the nose. Now come to this diagram. Nose have the nostrils. Okay, right nostrils, left nostril, basically this whole is called the nostrils, and they have the cavities. Which is divided by the septum. Okay, right nostrils and left we can say right nasal cavity and left nasal cavity. This is lined by the mucous membrane, or we can say the mucosal epithelial. Okay, and these epitheliums, they are carrying one of the specialized cells that's called the olfactory receptor cells, which are bearing the olfactory receptors. If we talked about their number is in millions. How much? 10 to 12 millions. Okay, now, as I said, there is also a presence of cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. Cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. Okay, a facial bone. Understood? Have any problem? No? Shall we move ahead? Yeah. So now once we describe the introductory part, let's move ahead and discuss about the receptor. I am just drawing their cut section and making here in a enlarged fashion. Okay, making here in a enlarged fashion. Shall I rub this? Okay. Now, as you know that the nasal mucosa is carrying, the nasal mucosa, they are basically carrying the very good nasal receptors. They are carrying basically the olfactory receptors, or we are saying just as a nasal receptor. Suppose these are your nasal mucosa. Okay, and the receptors, the olfactory receptors, they are bipolar neurons. They are the bipolar neurons, means they have one cell body. Okay, and there will be a two axon. There will be a two axon. Understanding? One axon and one part dendrites. Okay, one axon and one dendrites. This is called the bipolar neurons. You want to see the diagram here? See, this is your bipolar neurons. It is present in the retina, very good, and it's also present in this olfactory receptor. Understood? Clear? Now, these nasal mucosa, they are carrying, okay, first I draw then describe, it will be better. Okay, see, this is one bipolar neuron. Okay, this is one bipolar neuron, and as I said you that there is presence of which bone? Cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. Cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. Okay, this is a cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. They are present, and which nerve innervate this nasal, we can say, cavity? Anyone? Which nerve? Yeah, it's a second cranial nerve. It's a second cranial nerve. Can you name them? Yeah, it's a olfactory nerve. Very good. I'm impressed. It's a olfactory nerve. Understood? Now, these bipolar neurons, they have the two ends. The one is axon, and this axonal end of the bipolar neuron, or we can say the olfactory neurons, they have the cilia. They have the cilia. How many? Yeah, it's a 10 to 12 in number. This is a cilia. Okay, and their number is basically 10 to 12. 10 to 12. Okay, then this cell body contains the nucleus. Okay, and here is your olfactory bulb. Here is your olfactory bulb. This is your olfactory bulb, a part of optic nerve, Now, these bipolar neurons, okay, there we can say the dendritic part, they pierce these ethmoid bone, they make the piercing in these ethmoid bone, cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. Write down, it's a cribriform plate of ethmoid bone. Understanding? Now these bipolar neurons, their dendritic part, they pierce here and they come to the olfactory region, okay, and they make snaps here, okay. There are many. Okay, draw with me simultaneously. Yeah, it's a cilia, 10 to 12 in number, and they all are terminated here. They are making the synapse. You know that synapse is basically the meeting of, very good, two neurons. It is basically the meeting of two neurons. Now they make synapse with the olfactory bulb contain which cell? Yeah, which cell? Anyone? Very good. It's a mitral cells. So here the olfactory bulbs, they have the mitral cells, and they are basically making the synapse. They are making the snap. Okay, are you understanding? Yeah, okay. So these are your mitral cells which are making the connection, or we can say the synapse with the dendritic portion of olfactory neurons, okay, olfactory receptor neurons. Understood? This is your mitral cells. This is your mitral cell. It is basically present in the olfactory bulb, and this is your olfactory bulb. Understood? Any doubt till here? No? Shall we move ahead? Yeah. So these neurons, or we can say the specialized mitral cells neurons, they make the once again, and also don't forget there are also some of the testicular cells. They are present here. Okay, so let's change the color. Shall I change the color? So these are the testicular cells which is present here and there. They are basically helping. They are helping the olfactory receptor cells. Okay, now once again I am just enlarging this area, okay, and showing you here. Now as you seeing that this is your nasal mucosa. This is your, write down, this is your nasal mucosa. This nasal mucosa, okay, they are basically, we can say, innervated by these bipolar neurons, okay, bipolar receptory neurons. Okay, now these receptors, one end, the axonal ends, containing the cilia. They are containing the cilia, and these cilia, their number is 10 to 12. Their number is 10 to 12. Now, and these are your testicular cell. These are your testicular cell, and this is this area, the synapse, is basically called olfactory glomeruli. This is basically called as olfactory glomeruli. Olfactory glomeruli. So this is the cut section. Okay, this is a cut section of your nasal cavity, and you are seeing that the nasal mucosa, they have the cilia, okay, and these cilia, they goes to the cell body, okay, and their dendritic parts, they pierce this cribriform plate of ethmoid bone and they reach to the olfactory bulb. Olfactory bulbs have basically the mitral cells, okay, it's have the mitral cells, understanding. Now these mitral cells, they make the olfactory tract, they make the olfactory tract, and through the olfactory nerve, they goes to the olfactory cortex, which is basically present in the temporal lobe. Okay, this is the olfactory cortex, okay, which is basically present in the temporal lobe. Understanding? Now understand the phenomenon, how you perceive the smell. See, suppose here these smells are coming, okay, smells are coming through your nostrils, and this is your nasal mucosa. Nasal mucosa dissolve the air particles, okay, and these cilia, they are chemosensitive, okay, so they are basically changing the chemical stimulus into the action potential, by the we can say cyclic AMP pathway. There is an opening of sodium channels and the action potential will generate, okay, and they goes to olfactory bulb where they make the synapse, and this is called the olfactory glomeruli. Okay, now the synapse is made between the two things, the receptors, we can say the olfactory receptor dendrite part and mitral cells axon part. Now they further send the message to the olfactory cortex. They send the message to the olfactory cortex. Olfactory cortex is a primitive type of, we can say, the brain center, okay, and it have we can say the association with, write down, it has the association with the hippocampus, okay, it have the association with amygdala, okay, it have also the sensation with these, we can say, the part which is concerned with the consciousness, okay, understanding. This hippocampus is basically the memory, we can say, it is concerned with the memory process, okay, it stores here, the memories are stored inside your brain. These amygdala, they are basically the emotion center of the anger, happiness, all are generated in the amygdala, and the consciousness seats of these, we can say, the cortex, parietal cortex area. You know that sometimes you smell something and you start drowsiness. What this happen? How this happen? Because the olfactory cortex, where all the messages are going, this olfactory cortex, they have the, we can say, the association with other areas of brain as well, okay. That's why sometimes you smell something, okay, and you not feel good, okay, sometimes you become emotional, okay, sometimes you start nauseating. The nausea centers, it have also, very good, it have also the, we can say, the link between the nausea center, okay, it have also the association with the nausea center, Understanding? Have any problem? No? Now. So till now what we studied? We studied that the sensation of smell is carried out by the nasal, we can say mucosa. Okay, it is a specialized mucosa lined by too many mucosal glands, okay, that are also called the globulate cells. Here this area, the globulate cells are also present, okay, which is helping this nasal mucosa. Globulate cells, okay, globulate cells are present. We studied the cut section of the nasal cavity, okay, and we see that how the olfaction, or we can say the smell, is sent to the central nervous system. So we're done with our introductory part, olfactory receptors, okay, olfactory pathways, olfactory transduction. Now it's time to discuss about the vomeronasal organ. Okay, till now you have any doubt? You have any doubt? Anyone? No? Shall we move ahead? Okay, and these parts, basically these parts, they are making the limbic system. You know that during the pregnancy time, a female capacity to the smell is heightened, okay. We are termed as that hyperosmia. One theory says that during the pregnancy, a female have to protect themselves, okay, from the bad odor, from the bad smell. So that's why during that time their nasal mucosa, they become hypersensitive. And this is termed as the hyperosmia. Okay, and apart from the pregnancy, if this is happen, this is a diseased, they are showing the sign of disease, like some of the neurodegenerative disorders like Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, okay, even the narcotic, we can say some of the psychotic conditions, that's like epilepsy, okay, and hallucinatory olfaction also happened, okay, in the case of schizophrenia. So shall we move ahead? Do you have any doubt? No? Thank you. Now we are discussing what? The vomeronasal organ, okay, vomeronasal organ. And like this, first I will talk about some of the disease conditions, okay. See, these pathways, okay, if any trauma happens, okay, if there will be any, we can say the demyelination happen, except these cilia, they are the demyelinated part, but rest of this part, they are the myelinated. So in the case of some of the autoimmune diseases, write down, the best example is your multiple sclerosis. In the multiple sclerosis, there is a demyelination of the nerves. So if there will be a demyelination, it means the masses, the action potential which is generated, they are not going in a proper speed. In simple terms, we are just saying that they are not going in a, we can say, the appropriate way or intensified way, okay. So that lead to the hyposomic condition. Write down, hypoosmic condition, hypoosmia, okay. This is a one example. Now it can also happen by the trauma, okay, some of the brain injury, that also lead to the hypoosmia, okay. and in the case of, we can say, the heightened sense of smelling, like in pregnancy, okay, some of the neurodegenerative disorder, this is called as the hyperosmia. Okay, this is called as the hyperosmia. They are also known as hyperparathysis. They are also known as hyperparathysis. Understanding? Now, sometimes what happened, that's common observations, you maybe some of you might feel it, like when you have the common cold, okay, you have the common cold, your this nasal, we can say the nasal part, okay, the nostrils along with the nasal cavity, they are blocked, okay. If they are blocked, then you are unable to feel the smells, odors, okay, you are unable to feel the odor. So this condition where there is a complete loss of the sense of smell is called as anosmia. That is called as the anosmia or anosmia. Write down. This is called as anosmia. It can be the two type, okay, the anosmia, that can be two types. It may be for the temporary, okay, it can be for the temporary, or it may be for the permanent. Temporary in the case of normal rhinitis, okay, some of the allergic diseases, some of the, we can say, like the common cold, okay, they can lead for the temporary sensation, we can say the temporary seizement of the sensing of a smell, okay. But in the permanent conditions, in the case of, we can say, the epilepsy, okay, epileptic patient, they have this asomia, okay, aosmia, that's called the permanent type of aosmia. Understanding? Have any problem? No? Anyone? Understanding all? Shall we repeat? Understanding? Okay. So, about the, we can say, the abnormalities, the three conditions we've seen, okay. The first condition we've seen is a hyperosmia, where the sense of smelling is heightened, okay. The sense of perceiving the smell is heightened, okay. It's commonly happen in the case of pregnancy, which is generally, like in the morning sickness, we are saying the morning sickness will lead to the nausea or followed by the vomiting, okay. Then we seen there is a hypoosmic condition, okay. Hypoosmic condition means there is a less sensation of smell, okay. It can be, we can say, it also can be temporary or permanent. And we have the asomia, that means complete loss of sensation of smell. Understood? Have any problem? No? Shall we move ahead? Now, we are now discussing one accessory, we can say, smell organ or olfactory organ, olfaction organ basically, that's called the vomeronasal organ. Vomeronasal organ. The vomeronasal organ is classically discovered, okay, it's classically discovered in 1703, okay, 17th century. They are discovered by one anatomist, okay, who are dissecting the 2-year-old male cadaver, okay, who are dissecting the 2-year-old male cadaver, okay, 2-year-old male cadaver. They are dissecting and they found there is a presence of vomeronasal organ. There is a presence of vomeronasal organ, okay. There is a presence of vomeronasal organ. Vomeronasal organ, okay. This vomeronasal organ, they are in 1703 by one Dutch anatomist who discovered it, but they don't get too much attention, okay, from the other scientists, okay. So this this discovery of this vomeronasal organ is suspected, okay, in 1803. When? In 1803, in the 18th century, there was one physician, or we can say the doctor, or a surgeon. They are the surgeon basically, okay, and his name is, okay, his name is, his name, see, his name is Ludwig Javerson. His name is Ludwig Javerson. Jacob. Write down Jacob. What happened? He seen in the lower animals that there is a presence of this vasonasal organ, okay, and he given one hypothesis, or we can say in his thesis, he written that this organ is responsible for controlling the sexual behavior, okay, it is responsible for controlling the sexual behavior, as well as it's also help in communication between the closely related species, okay, help in the communication with closely related species, okay. And when he come to the searching this organ into the higher species like in us, they first went into searching in monkeys, and he said in the monkey this organ become so small that we are unable to find it in the humans, okay. This organ becomes so small that we are not able to find it in the case of humans, okay. Whereas in the 1703, I forget the name, but I remember he was a anatomist, okay. He was anatomist who is performing the dissection in the anatomy lab, okay, on the 2-year-old male cadaver, okay, and he found the existence of this vomeronasal organ in the nasal septum, okay. Now, modern CT scans, okay, MRI, they clearly shown there is a presence of these vomeronasal organs in the humans, but they are sometimes genetically determined. Okay. They may be present or they may not be present. Okay. They may be present or they may not be present. Understood? Now, their function in the human, that's a highly controversial. He said in the monkey they become so small that we are unable to find it out in the humans, okay. So and generally they are published in the Latin, okay, so they won't get too much attention. There is one controversy, but nowadays there are so many research, they are showing if you performed any nose surgery, okay, any nose surgery which affect this nasal septum, like in the case of plastic surgery, or we can say the rhinoplasticity, then there will be alteration in the female sexual lifestyle, okay. The GnRH hormone, which is secreted by the hypothalamus, the GnRH hormone, that's called the gonadotropin releasing hormone, they will affect it, okay, but they are not clear cut proof, okay. The second thing about comes the research from the phanosomes. These phanosomes are basically secreted by the human apocrine gland, okay, like the armpits, okay. Armpits, they secrete some of the secretions, okay. These are called the phanosomes. These phanosomes, they are detected by this vomeronasal organ, okay, vomeronasal organs, and they affect the major parts in the brain, okay. There is one book they written that if there is a two girl, okay, if there is a two girl and they are living in a same room, okay, and if the one girl, they secrete these pheromones by their armpits, okay, and if it is smelled by the another girl, if it is smelled by the another girl, then there will be alteration in their menstrual cycle. There will be alteration in this menstrual cycle, okay, that's written, but the underlying mechanism how this happened, this is not yet clear cut, okay, this is not yet clear cut. So these organs is still, we can say, extensive research area, okay, it's extensive research area. And about this organ in the humans, we can say that it's help in the, like, you know, like when the baby is born, okay, and there is a one smell odor in the newborn babies, okay, there is a smell odor in the newborn babies, and that attracts the mother to provide the better care, okay, to feed them better, in a better way. So these secretions which are newly formed baby secreting, they are also called as this phanerosome. They are also called as phanerosome. They are a non-volatile substance, okay. So one of this also, it's help in the human for their social regulation, we can say, okay. But there is no any clear cut idea till now about the vomeronasal organ. Understood? No problem. Now let's move ahead. What we discussed right now, we done with the introductory part. We done the olfactory receptors. We talked about the olfactory receptor, that they are basically made up of the bipolar neurons, okay, and their one end is embedded into the nasal mucosa, we seen, and the other end is piercing the, very good, the cribriform plate of ethmoid bone, and they goes to the olfactory bulb where they make the synapse with the mitral cells, and then they form the olfactory pathway, and this is carried out by the olfactory nerve, which goes to the olfactory cortex, which is basically present in your, very good, which is present in your temporal region of brain. Understood? Now this olfactory cortex, as you seen, that it have the relationship with the limbic system, which is basically concerned with the emotion, anger, okay. Then there will be also a connection with the nausea. That's why sometimes you smell something, okay, and you feel the vomiting or nauseation, this nausea sensation is came to you, okay. And then sometimes some odor, like some smell, they distract you, okay. That means it have also the relationship with your emotions, okay, the emotion system. And some type of smell, like if you are the chronic, I don't think you are a chronic smoker, but some of they are chronic smoker, and if they smell, okay, then there is a triggering of their, we can say, the memory. Are you understanding? Yeah, don't need to say more. Yeah, okay. Now, and we've seen also that how this olfactory cortex work, okay. Then we've seen some of the abnormalities, that if the sensation of this olfaction is, we can say, not properly come, okay, not properly come, then this is termed as the hypoosmia, okay. Mainly this happen in some of the neurodegenerative disorders like the Parkinson disease, Alzheimer disease, okay. And we've seen that in the case of multiple sclerosis, where the demyelination of nerves happen, okay, that can also lead to the hypoosmia condition. Then we've seen the hyperosmia condition, that's the heightened sense of smelling, which is generally happen in the case of pregnancy, but they are resolved as soon as the pregnancy is done, okay. We can say this disease, or this not a disease, that's like one kind of condition, okay, that can be resolved after the pregnancy. And you know that why this happened, because this is like the protective mechanism for a woman, so that the woman will not smell something harmful that will destroy their child, okay. That's why they are just irritated by the little smells, okay. So they keep their good odor, good smell. Understanding? Now, then we seen about the vomeronasal organ in detail, and we come at the point to make the conclusion, okay. And the research also shows that there is no any clear-cut idea till now about the vomeronasal organ. It's extensive research area. Okay. So by this, I say to you all, thank you. Bye with having me. Have a nice day.